Okay, we are on Daf Mem Vav Mem Aleph, 46a, second line down. Before he starts, we have our inspirational story of the day. With Hashem, we'll be learning this Daf, Amud. Oh, eventually we'll learn Amud too, not too, but right now we're learning the Amud. Okay, so story that I wanted to tell, very recent story. There was a Vishnitz Bacher, a Bacher, a Hasidish Bacher, a young yeshiva student, who was on a plane from, wrong page, on a plane from Israel to England. That's what it sounded like. He was going home, I guess, for whatever reason. And he was sitting right in between, his feet was in between two women. I don't know exactly how they were dressed. It wasn't up to his standards, perhaps, anyone's standards. And he didn't really feel comfortable. So he asked someone, a woman in the next row, would you mind switching with me? Do you mind sitting over here? I'll sit over there. And reasonable request, so to speak. The woman was not happy with the request. She made a scene and started saying things about right. She made a scene about the whole thing, religious Jews. You've heard the story before, perhaps once or twice. And the Bacher was a young guy, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 years old, was at his wits' end, didn't know what to do, kind of standing there just davening that Hashem would help him. Another irreligious woman from a few rows back walks up, says, no need to worry. I'll be happy to switch you. I'll sit over here. I'll sit over here. Everyone here is dressed properly, dressed. And ready next to a man, whatever. I'm sure you'll feel more comfortable sitting here. Why don't you? Completely religious woman. Oh, thank you very much. Unreligious. Filoni legamre. Legamre. Completely irreligious. She said, thank you very much. I do have one request from you. I see you're a religious person. You pray every day. You spend your life in doing holy things, doing the work of God. He says, my daughter is in Gaza, not on vacation. He's in Gaza as a hostage. We had control of Gaza, man. When I used to be there, there's some there. I don't know. Rashid went to vacation there. There's a little kibbutz, and he went on vacation. But not anymore. Gaza is no place for anybody, any human, for that matter. She was there. Her name was Emily. I forgot her last name. And he agreed to daven, and he would say tell him for her name, or say her name every day. Every day, he would say it with kavana. It was the agreement they made. When they finally agreed to release the hostages recently, she was in the first batch, first round, who came out. So we don't really know exactly what Hashem's cheshbonot are, but it's probably a good chance that this act that this woman did played a role, and the tefillos of this boy also. She did something that was completely unnecessary. Didn't have to do it. She could mind her own business. She was several rows back. And this young man obviously went through a lot of bushot, a lot of embarrassment before he switched his seat. That's what seat switched. So, but I think, if you're go out of our box sometimes, do something for somebody else, Hashem sends us what we need in the time we need it. So just something to remember, and also that don't judge everyone at first glance. People are judging this bacher. How are you at? People judge. I'm sure any religious person who would see this woman would write her off in 3 seconds. She's not religious. Look what you did. She has a daughter in Gaza, and she was willing to switch a seat, and she asked what was her request. Not to say thank you, not to buy me a candy bar, but say Tillim for my daughter. So a lot of messages, and we should be inspired by others to improve ourselves as well. Yeah. Okay. Now let's get on with the Gemara. Carry on. Keep going, as they say. I'm picking up British English slowly, very slowly. I learned how to pronounce the word whilst. That was my first accomplishment. Yeah, whilst. Yes. Okay. We just say while. It's too hard. Okay. So that's our Milsa Bichusa to start the day. Okay. Okay, so we're on the top of Mem Vav Amud Aleph, second line. So the Gemara is going to go through. We had a Bryce, so we had a discussion about the case of a Katsitsa, a case where there's disagreement between the worker and the employer, whether he was paid or not, whether he was not paid. But there's also a discussion with regard to the wages. He agreed to the wage of, let's say, 200 shekel, whatever, 2 shekel, and the employer insists just 1. That's a place of Katsitsa. So we had said, well, that was up for discussion before. We had a brisa, which seems to say amotzi mechaver al varaya. In that case, then the employee, the worker who wants more pay, has to bring proof. That's what we had said. But we're going to have a whole discussion about that. It'll take up the majority of this amud. And the last piece of the amud is a discussion going on to the case where somebody gave someone a collateral, a mashkon, and he goes into the guy's house to collect it, comes out with something. He claims he did take, he claims he didn't take. We'll discuss that. Okay, so let's start. Second line from the top. Start Bezrat Hashem. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rabbi Yirmiyah, the son of Abba, said, Shalchu le mibei Rav l'Shmuel. They sent a question from the yeshiva of Rav to Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel were the Gedolei Hador then. Yilamdenu Rabbeinu. Enlighten us, teach us, Rabbi. Uman Omer Shtayim Katzastali. Allah Omer Lo Katzati Lecha Ela Achas. The Uman, the craftsman, the worker, just like a worker, same idea. It's like the schir, the worker, the Uman, the craftsman, the tailor, for example. If he says, Katzas, we agreed on the price of my work would be 2. Allah and the person, the balabayas, we call him the employer, the person who gave him the work to do, says we agreed on 1. So we have no witnesses to this regard. Mi nishba. So who has to swear? Who's swearing in this case? So the first thing, who swears? Does the balabayas, the guy who sent the work to the uman, to the craftsman, or the craftsman himself, to the worker, the tailor? Who swears? Now the first thing you have to know is the Ritva points out, there's an assumption here that the assumption that somebody is swearing. We originally learned the Bryce before. He said, in this case, we don't talk about Shavuos, we talk about proof. Here we're saying the assumption in the shaila between the yeshiva of Rav to Shmuel is that somebody has to swear, that there's an oath that has to be taken, and then somebody collects, or doesn't collect, whatever the case may be.
That's the difference between that one and the worker who says, the employee, I work for you for 2, and the employer says, no, you only work for me for 1. The one says that the employer knows how much he asked for.
Okay.
It's exactly the same here, isn't it?
Right, exactly the same case. That's what the Gemara is going to discuss.
The previous case, right. the worker loses out.
Right.
Here,
previously is the
employer has to swear.
Yishbaha,
yeah. But what's the difference between the 2 cases?
Right. So we're going to discuss that.
If there is any difference.
Right. So here there's some discussion about that. That's going to be the very next thing we're going to discuss. That we're going to bring that case, and we're going to discuss it. Very good, Alan. That's the very next thing we're going to discuss, and then have different opinions. The Mechlokas Rabbi Huda and the Rabbanan, and this is what Shmuel said, and Rabbi Huda has a different opinion, and so yeah. So that's what we said so far. We said so far on this page, on this Amud, we said that if you Mechlokas between the balabayas, the person giving the work, and the uman, and the craftsman, the tailor, the worker, let's call him, how much he's paid. He said, who has to swear? So Amar Lahen, Shmuel said to the yeshiva of Rav, the people who came to him, Bezu, in this case, Yeshava balabayas. The balabayas swears, the yafsid uman, and the worker loses out. Why? Katzitza vadi midkar dechiri inshi. People certainly remember the amount of the price that was set. Since the balabayas seems to have the upper hand in that regard, more likely that he remembers what was said. Can argue that. So therefore, he takes the shua, and then he collects the extra shekel per hour or whatever that they agreed on, or extra amount that they agreed to. Okay. Now, that's what we said. Now, that's so what we're saying here. So Shmuel said is that in the case when one says two, the worker, it's called the worker, and the employer are disagree. It says the employer takes it off. But if you remember before, as Alan pointed out, we said the skier, the worker. So that's what we're going to say next. Any, that's not. Is that true? But Tani Rabba Bar Shmuel, didn't Rabba Bar Shmuel learn kotzatz if they disagreeing about the wage, the actual wage that was set, hamotzi mechavera olav haraya. Then the burden of proof is on the person who's making the claim. In this case, it would be the uman, the worker, would have to bring proof. We're not talking about swearing. Vilo maisi raya, and if he can't bring proof for the fact that he is owed what he claims, another shekel, another for his fee, then it gets removed. The claim gets thrown out. Why did Shmuel say in this case, Yishba Balabayas, the Balabayas, the employer, called that, who's sent this work to the Uman? How come he swears if Yafsid Uman, the worker loses out? Doesn't seem to be the right thing. Before we said Amotzi Mechaver al Haraya, he has to bring a proof. Why are we talking about swearing? Why is the Balabayas swearing? Okay. So Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman attempts to answer this. Take a drink. What? Good tea, Yitzchak. You make great tea. Fantastic. Okay. So Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says the following. First word on the line is Amar Rav Nachman. How far are we down? This is one of those daf that are not lined up the same. Oh no, it is lined up the same. Okay, I found it. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says like this. No, let's study in Katani. We're just mentioned part of the case. In the Brisa was just writing that we quoted. It's only quoting. Well, it's only listing part of the potential outcomes of the case. Didn't say the whole thing. Let's study in Katani. Maybe Raya Vito. There's two possibilities. One is that the Uman, the craftsman, the worker, can bring a proof that they agreed to two as the wage. He told him that he could take his extra shekel or 100 shekel, whatever the amount was, as payment. If not, which is what the Brisa said. If not, which is not in the Brisa, which is an additional add-on, Yeshava Balabayas, if you can't bring proof, Yeshava HaBalabayas, the Yafsid Uman. Then we go over to the Balabayas, let him swear, and the Uman, worker, craftsman loses out. So it's kind of an add-on, like almost like Chasura Mechsra al-Hakikani. Like in the Mishnah, we say sometimes there's a piece missing, they left out, and we have to add it in to make it work. That's what we're doing here too. The Brisa, you're right. The Brisa said, what's seeming not like Shmuel, the Brisa said, in this case, he has to bring proof that he's owed more than he says, two, not one. But what did Shmuel mean? The Balabayas swears, the employer swears, and then he takes, and then it's off the hook from paying. That's if the worker can't bring any proof. He can't bring the proof, then we turn it over to the Balabayas and make him swear, and the worker loses out. So that's how we make it fit. Bryce is only saying part of what we do. That's the answer. So that's fine. So we're going to ask a question then on the Bryce, on this, on what we're saying so far. We said so far that if, assuming there's no proof, like Shmuel, then you have to, then who swears? The Balabayas swears, or they're arguing over the price of the wage, the set wage. The Balabayas, the owner swears, the employer swears, and then he take it from there, not the worker. But I'll ask you a question from Brisa. First, we're on the line, Mesve. I'll ask you a question from Brisa. It's in probably, let's see, all right, and Babasra. Let's see, Hanosein taliso l'uman. A person gives his talis, his cloak, to an uman, whatever it may be, the dry cleaners. I don't know if they had dry cleaners back then. The tailor. Don't give it close to dry cleaners. So what? I'll be very Talmudic. What should you give to the dry cleaner? No, you're implying don't give to the dry cleaners. Don't get close, right? Have you had bad experiences with the dry cleaners? I actually, my first my first kittel was lost to the dry cleaner. They had a fire or something. So that's a very good reason to not give it to the dry cleaner. Okay, so let's keep it safe. He sends it to the tailor. Has a little bit. Okay, hopefully not near the corner. Then you have the string problems there. I know sent Talisa uman. A person sends his talis off, gives a talis to uman, to a craftsman, some sort of person to fix things. Uman omer katstas alishtaya. He said, the uman, the craftsman, says, we agreed to the wage of two. The Allah omer, and the owner, which is the employer says, lo katatsi l'chayalachas. We agreed to one. Wait a second, they don't have those, the sign of however machine costs on top, the big sign, cups are this, and waist is that, and shoulders is this. No such thing in this tailor. So they didn't agree on the fee. They have a disagreement about what the fee is that they had. So the answer is what we do depends on the status of the garment, like this. Kol's mancha talis beyond uman, as long as the talis, this garment, is still in the hands of the uman, al balabayis lahaviraya. Then the employer, the owner of the talis, has to bring a raya. There's a concept that uman is sort of kona, sort of, with the fixing that he does. There's a sort of act of kinyan, so to speak. So then it's really it's in his possession. So to get back, he has the upper hand in that case, as long as he's holding on to the garment. So then you, as the employer, the owner of the garment, have to bring proof of the lower fee before he gives it back. Then what happens if he actually gave it back? The uman gives back the talis to the owner, the worker, giving back to the employer. Nos nalo, he gives it back to talis. Now the employer, the owner of the talis, is holding the talis. Bismano, nos nalo bismano, he gives it back time. Nishba benota. Right afterwards, of the same day, when nishba benota, then who would swear? The uman would swear and say, not the balabais, the uman, which is the worker. The worker swears, and then he takes his extra pay. Over is mana, but once the time has passed, and there's less reason to believe him, as I said earlier, once the time has passed, then, why didn't you come earlier? We assume that, the employer would pay up his fee already, the pay was owed already. Then that's been a right. Anyway, what do we derive from that? Bismano, if he gave back the talis on the same day, he's claiming Bismano, he's claiming the worker, Uman claims two, and the employer claims one. Mia, it says Nishba Venoto. Nonetheless, we say Nishba Venoto. The Uman, the worker, swears. Amai, why is he swearing? Yishba Balabayas, Vyapsid Uman. Didn't Shmuel say in the case, who's doing the swearing? Assuming the guy can't bring proof, then Shmuel said, Yishba Balabayas, Vyapsid Uman. Who's doing the swearing? The employer does the swearing. And here, in this brisa, we say the worker, the uman, does the swearing. Which one is it? According to Shmuel, supposed to be the balabaya swearing. So it seems like this brisa contradicts what Shmuel said. So it's in. Okay, that's what it seems. It's later if we get to that. Okay, so.
And the garment is passed over or not passed over.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right. If he's still holding onto the garment, in that case, it's a special rule because Uman is like Kona, that he almost acquires the garment with his fixing. There's a special status, and he's holding on to it. So then the burden of proof is really on the owner who wants it back. Okay, Summer of Nachman, Nachmar Yitzchak. Okay, Amar of Nachmar Yitzchak. Of Nachmar Yitzchak, the first word in the line is Amar, and I need to highlight this properly. I did not do this properly. Amar of Nachmar Yitzchak. Okay, it says, I'm sorry, you have a different gersa, maybe. I think the Oz V'Hadar would be the articles would be the same as this. So the first word on the line would be Amar of Nachman. If you don't have the art scroll or the Oz V'Hadar version, it probably would start with Balabayas, first of the line. It's probably what starts on Yitzchak. Okay, but anyway, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak. Always confuses me when the different setups in the Gemara here. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. No, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says the following. No, that brisa is not contradictory to Shmuel because that brisa is one opinion. We're going to see how many Rabbi Huda. That's Rabbi Huda, but as it doesn't quote it, the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Huda. So Shmuel holds like the Rabbanan, but we're going to. So the Rabbanan would hold like Shmuel that that the Baal Abayis swears and take. Yeah, he's got you. Got you, Jeff. Okay. Amar Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Hamani, Rabbi Huda. It's Rabbi Huda. This price is Rabbi Huda. The Amar, who says, Kolzman Sheshvua Notel It's a Baal Abayis. Anytime you have a shvua in the Torah, like motive of mixas, you partially admit. What do? Schir nishba b'notel. Then we switch it to the schir for various reasons, because the Baal Abayis is busy, doesn't remember the wage. Schir nishba b'notel. The schir, the employee, the worker, swears and takes his wage, he said. So, right, so this brisa that says who swears, the uman, the worker swears, that's going like, that's Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda holds the worker swears in this case, and then he takes. But that's a disagreement. Rabbanan doesn't quote it here, but the Rabbanan disagree with that, and they say no, the Baal Abayis, the employer swears, and that's who Shmuel holds like. But this quoting is Rabbi Huda, and that's where the brisa is going on. The brisa says the worker swears, and that's like Rabbi Huda. It says the worker takes the oath and then takes the money he's claiming. Okay, so fine.
Is reflected of the opinion of Rabbi Huda, who said that whenever a requirement to take an oath would be incumbent upon the householder under biblical law.
Right, under biblical law, the Torah.
Right. The sages enacted the employee may swear in his stead and collect contested amount, in dispute concern amount of the employee wages. Right. As the Bryce's case, the household remitted partial liability and thus incurred a biblical obligation to swear. The craftsman is allowed to swear in his stead and collect the full amount. However, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is disputed by the majority of the rabbis, who hold that whenever the disagreement occurs, the amount of the stipulation, it is the employer who takes the oath. Shmuel's ruling. In such a case, the householder swears and pays the lesser amount according with the opinion of the rabbi.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's good. Hashem. Hashem. It happens once or twice when we're learning. Yeah, So maybe I left that one point. I said on the level of the Torah it becomes a Rabbanan obligation. We said that before, somewhere down here. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda says that the Huda says the schir swears, the employee, the worker swears. That's in line with the brisa. It's Rabbi Huda. How come the brisa says the worker swears? Shmuel says the employer swears, not the worker. That's because the brisa says Rabbi Huda, who says the worker swears, takes a shvua. But Shmuel, who says the employer swears, is like the Rabbanan, the majority opinion of the rabbis, they say. Okay, so that we answer the brisa. That seems to make sense. Brisa is okay. That's one opinion. Shmuel is okay. The other opinion. So you see this, it's not so clear. From the previous, as you pointed out, from the previous Amud, it seems to be clear, They have a discussion about the wage, he has to bring proof. Now we're throwing out different opinions, whether who has to swear. It sounds like Shmuel and Balabai, the employer has to swear and doesn't, and gets out of paying. And according to Rabbi Yehuda in his brisa, the worker swears, the uman, and he gets his money.
What we just said. Yes, the superimpose it. Who's actually holding the garment?
Onto who's holding the garment? Correct. Right.
Right. Bear in mind that which one to follow, who physically got it.
Right.
Especially in 19th and the law.
Right.
That seems to be applicable.
Right. That's the distinction that was made. Was in the beginning of the brisa. I know Saint Talisa, right? The beginning of the brisa, Meisvei. I know some Talisa Oman. Kozman shetalis biad uman ala bayis lavi raya. Right. But in the case that he gave it back in the Zman, if he gave it back and it's 2 days later, then we have the other thing that says, why you wait so long? And then you have to bring a proof. But in the time when you're supposed to collect the same day, and the worker and the employer is holding on to the garment, in that case, who swears? Right. Right. Okay.
So the Rabbonim, rabbis, override Eraisa, because the Hashem gave the ability to rabbis down here to interpret how they feel.
Right.
So therefore, the rabbis must win over this one.
Right. It seems like there's a concept that if there's a D'Oraisa Shvua, we get to it today, or is it? Yeah, we'll talk about that idea of switching the oath towards the end today. It seems like a concept. If D'Oraisa on the level, biblical level, there's an oath. There's a concept that it can be flipped to the other party, perhaps even by rabbinic oaths too. Because this concept of flipping oaths, that oaths are floatable. They move around. It's on on one party with the other party. If one person's not believed, we send it to the other party. If both parties aren't believed, it's bounced back and forth. I think that's next. That's tomorrow, I think. Or is it maybe that? Come back. It's an interesting concept. There's a Gilgul Shua, concept of rolling off Shuas. You have Shua for one thing, so you can throw in another Shua. Also, Shuas seem to have this fluid concept to them, that they can go from one person to the other. Bouncing ball, yeah, so to speak. It's interesting. We'll see more. Hopefully, well, not too much more to see. We'll see as we go on. Okay. So we continue. Hey, Rabbi Yehuda. So which Rabbi Yehuda we're referring to? We said Rabbi Yehuda is the author of this brisa, and he holds that the sphere, the worker, is the one that takes the oath. That's what he said. So we have to figure out which brisa, what's the source of Rabbi Yehuda that says this. Hey, Rabbi Yehuda. That's what we want to say. Bit of a problematic door. Doesn't close so well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, hey, Rabbi Yehuda. Which Rabbi Yehuda are you referring to? Hey, Rabbi Yehuda. Ilema. It's the first one of the lines. Ilema. About halfway down. Ilema, Rabbi Yehuda the Masnisian. If referring to the Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah. Achmure kamachmir. In that case, he's more machmir. He says, Rabbi Yehuda says, in the cases brought in the Mishnah, he says the only time we let him swear and take, let me just see the case, is if there's modem mixas, if there's a partial admittance. Right. Rabbi Yehuda would say that, right. For example, he says, by the case of a collateral, he goes into his house and takes a collateral, for example, he would say, Nishba b'notel. He swears and then he takes. But it has to be a case where there's a partial admittance. So he took one kli, so he took two vessels, or something like those kind of cases. There has to be a partial admittance. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't agree just nishba b'notel, you swear and you take. In our Mishnah, he's more machmir, he's more strict. It has to be a partial admittance. He says, no, you took one vessel. He says, no, you took two. It has to be a partial admittance. So he seems to be a little bit more strict about when we say nishba and b'notel. If we say it's Rabbi Yehuda Mishnah, Machmir, he's more Machmir. The Tanan, as we learn in our Mishnah, has to be a partial admittance before we say Nishba b'notel. He's more strict about what's by swearing and taking. So when is this brisa that just says the schir swears, the employee, the worker just swears and takes without any limitations? When is that? Ella Rabbi Yehuda the brisa. It's Yehuda of a brisa. The Tanya, as we learned in the brisa. Sphere, a worker, calls man shalo over alav zmano, as long as it's not the next day, the appropriate time to make his claim. Areza nishba b'notel. He swears and takes. V'im lav, if it's not the appropriate time, enu nishba b'notel. He cannot swear and take. Bam Rabbi Yehuda, we'll explain this. This is a bit of not a long brisa, a few lines. We're concerned with one particular line. We'll get to it. V'am Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says, Emasai. When is it? What's the case that we just said in this brisa? So we said the schir nishma b'notel. He swears and he takes what he's claiming. Emasai. When's that? Bizman she'amar lo Haimli schari chamisha. He says, give me my wages of 50, chamishim dinar. Sheish li b'yadcha, that you're holding on to. V'omer, kabalta mehem dinar zahav. You already got 25. Oh, or another case, this is one we're worried about, we're concerned, This is one we want to point out. Osh Amrlo, that he says to him, Shtayim Katsatzta. You agreed, the worker says, you agreed to pay me 2. That was the wage we said. Va'lo Omer, and the employer says, Lo Katzati L'chel Achas. No, you only agreed to pay me 1. That was the agreement we made, he says. In that case, that's the case that the Yehuda in this brisa would say, Nishba Benoto. No, it doesn't have to be just straight up like that. Aval Omer, no stipulations. Aval Omer lo scharticha, lo scharticha me'olam. What if he says, I never hired you at all, never know what you're talking about? Osh Omer lo scharticha v'nasati lo scharech. If he says, I paid you and I paid you up fully, amotzi mechver l'rayat. Then he has to bring proof. So anyway, we brought, so this is the brisa, this is the Rabbi Yehuda, where he doesn't make stipulations. He doesn't say, no, it's only if he did this, or did that, only partially admitted. He agrees to part of the wage, which is also true. That could be the case, but he's more liberal and more without stipulations. That the skier, the employer, right, the worker, swears and takes just like that. And that seems to be the Rabbi Yehuda of this brisa. The brisa said, Rabbi Yehuda holds, the worker is the one who swears, and then he gets his additional wage. That's what Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. That's it.
Time frame which
Right. Time.
worker asks for wage,
Right.
did the job, he gave the
Right.
whatever reason something happened, wasn't able to
Right.
claim, he had to pay
We can just claim. Yeah, the brisa, the original brisa also said that.
The owner has the club, or the cleaner has the club. Another level of,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to, get some understanding in my head. I can see that it seems to be like layer on layer on
Yeah.
layer.
Yeah. Yes.
The way we can know is I'm having a situation. Oh, maybe it's this, and it's that.
Yeah. You wait till tomorrow. At the very beginning of tomorrow.
It's worse.
No, it's worse. It's simpler. It's simpler tomorrow, but there's 5 layers. Why do we say this like this? But it's only like in this case. But it's only in this case. It's only in this case. Let's see. It's very interesting. It's simple. It's a simple thing, but it's a lot of well stipulations. Simple. Yeah. Okay. So now we seem to have some. To find my place. Okay. Maskiv law Rav Shisha. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to last narrow line. So now Maskiv Rav Shisha bered Rav Idi. Well, Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, is going to ask a question. So we're trying to find who holds what here. So wonderful. We found that Shmuel says Shmuel fits himself into the brisa, but if he can't bring a raya, then he swears. Who swears? Shmuel says the Balabaya swears. And Rav Yehuda, who's like the brisa, well, the brisa is going like Rav Yehuda, or however you want to word it. The brisa is Lafi Rav Yehuda, holds that no, the worker swears and takes. Nishba Benoto swears and takes what he's claiming. Fine. But we quoted 2 things from Rabbi Yehuda. They aren't exactly the same. Our Mishnah says it's a little bit more machmir. It has like stipulations. One we could say the worker can take. One does he take? Not every. It has to be like a partial admittance. And in this brisa, is a little bit more open with the. He just swears and takes. So maskivla. Let's go through this. We have to they're kind of trying to. We know. Let's take a step back. Just a little. We know what Shmuel holds. Assuming the other guy can't bring proof, the balabayas, the employer swears. Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda, the brisa says the worker swears. We now have to weed out what's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion here. Exactly how did the Rabbanan who argued Rabbi Yehuda hold? How did the Mishnah, the brisa work with Rabbi Yehuda? Get a little bit more clarity on what the opinions are. So Maskiv Rav Shisha B'rei Davidi. That's the question. Ella Kotzas Rabbi Yehuda below Rabbanan. Seems like Rabbi Yehuda holds by the case of Ktitza when they're arguing about the wage. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who holds that the schir, the worker, swears and takes, not the Rabban. The Rabbanan don't hold that. Ashta Hechi the Machner Yehuda Mikil the Rabbanan. So we established that the Rabbanan and Yehuda are arguing. We know that, but now we're saying that where Rabbi Yehuda is Machmir must be that the Rabbanan are more makel, more lenient. And when's that? That's in the Mishnah. When Rabbi Yehuda requires that at least be a partial admittance before the worker can swear and take what he's claiming. And therefore the Rabbanan over there would be Mekel, would be more lenient, perhaps. But if that's so, Hecha de Mekel Rabbi Yehuda, in our case, in this brisa, Rabbi Yehuda holds there's more Mekel, which is itself a little bit of a question, and says, no, the worker just swears and takes, Machmir Rabbanan, does that mean that the Rabbanan are now more Machmir or now more strict? How exactly does this work? So if Ella Mai Rabbanan, maybe you'll say, no, the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda agree. They both say that no. In this case, the skier is nishba v'notel. The worker just swears and takes the extra wage that he's claiming. The Ella, if that's true, Haditanya Rabba Bar Shmuel, the Bryce we learned before that Rabba Bar Shmuel brought, Kotzatz, they agree they disagree rather on the amount of the wage. What do we say? We say the one who who's claiming has to bring the proof. So money, who would that be? Lo Rabbi Huda v'lo Rabbanan. Can't be Rabbi Huda and Rabbanan. Because if we say it's just a temporary havmina, a temporary thought, a hypothesis, perhaps that Rabbi Huda and Rabbanan both say that the skier unconditionally, say let's not put it that way. Skier, the worker just swears and gets his extra wage. And both Rabbi Huda and the Rabbanan agree to that. So then, who is this brisa going? Who is it the brisa going like? It's not like Rabbi Huda, not like Rabbanan. Brisa says we don't say somebody swears. We say Amosim Mechaver L'Raya. The person who's making a claim needs to bring proof. No oath. Ella, it must be they're really disagreeing. We know that. Rabbi Huda is disagreeing with Rabbanan. That has to be. Rabbanan have to be going like Shmuel. Shmuel has to be going like Rabbanan rather. Ella Amar Rava, what's the case? Let's flush out a little bit their machlokas, get a better sense. No, Rabbanan and Rabbi Huda are not agreeing. They're not agreeing. And here's what they're arguing about. This is how you structure the machlokas, a little bit more understanding of what they're arguing about. All we knew before is Rabbi Huda says skir, and Rabbanan say no. Let's get some more clarity. And this is what they're arguing about. Rabbi Huda savar, Rabbi Huda holds b'dioraisa in a case of a biblical oath, like a motive of mixas, he admits part of it, or have one aid, say one aid, for example, one witness. Avdu le takanta l'skir. Then the rabbis made a takana. We take the shua, the oath that would be incumbent upon the employer, and put it on the employee, on the worker. And then he swears and he hasn't got the extra wage, and he takes what he's got. But by a rabbinic oath, have takanta, that's obviously an enactment, a rabbinic enactment. The takanta, and making an additional enactment to a pre-existing enactment, we don't do. Law of Dina. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds. The Rabbanan Savri, Rabbanan hold no. The Rabbanan Nami Abdinan Takanta. Even in a case if the oath is just rabbinic in nature, still we say Abdinan Takanta l'skir. We make this takana on behalf of the skir of the worker, and even though the oath would technically be incumbent upon the employer, we take that oath and put it on the employee, and he swears and takes. If that's the case, let's understand the ketzitza. What about the case of ketzitza? The case of how did the Rabbanan hold by the case of ketzitza? The Rabbanan held, that, or the Brisa, at least holds ketzitza by the case of the wages. We say amotzim mechaver al rai, that in that case, we don't let the worker swear and take. Why? The mitkar dachir, because by wages, remember the svara, we said the principle that the owner, the employer remembers the wages, that he remembers. So we don't move the whole oath from the employer to the worker. Why do we move the oath from the employer to the worker? Because the employer is busy, he's got lots of workers. The worker remembers. We take the oath from the employer, put on the worker. But here, we don't have that svara. Like by ketzitza, by the wage, the employer does remember the wage. So we keep it like it is. And in that case, we don't have the worker swearing. We have it doesn't say it, but it would either would mean the employer swears or the motzim mechaver al varaya. And the Rabbanan would be going like Shmuel, I presume. It doesn't say that here, but I assume that's what it means. Uh, uh,
In case
Right.
of the employer knowing exactly how much he's paid the employee,
Right.
that it would be more incumbent upon him to make a sure, because he
Right.
would cement what he has said,
Right. Right.
and the worker loses out.
Right. It's very interesting what a person remembers and doesn't remember. We say here like a wage. I said this before. Wages he remembers. But we said the principle earlier. What did you say? Said that. Right.
Yeah.
And an employer also, he doesn't pay more or less.
Right.
He struck a deal, and that's what happens.
Right.
So therefore, by him cementing what he has said, by making sure the worker can't claim.
Right.
So if the worker claims, he makes sure the employer has to give him extra money.
Right. So yeah. So the Shmuel, Shmuel's going like the Rabbanan. So Rabbanan's like Shmuel, and that means that I presume it goes back to the original brisa, which we said that if you remember, if Amoti Mechavel Varaya, the employee who's claiming has to bring proof, but if he can't bring a proof, then who swears? The employer swears. That's what Shmuel said. That's how Shmuel learns. That's how Shmuel would fit into the brisa. Amoti Mechavel Varaya, but if he can't bring a raya, the worker, then they make the owner swear because he remembers the wage, so he swears, and he doesn't have to pay. That's how. Yeah. Okay. I did not highlight this at all. I apologize to those who are watching later. My apologies for not highlighting properly. Okay. Right. So Joe has not come on, by the way. If anyone is in contact with him, you can tell him he can come tomorrow. Weather permitting, I think that's always a factor for everyone. And it's tomorrow. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. I once heard, I don't know if this, I think I once read or heard that the reason why it's very difficult to predict the weather here is because we're right in the middle of three different fronts, or whatever the word is. You have the European weather front, the Asian weather front, and the African weather front. And we're right in the middle, or the middle point, right? So, right. So apparently that's hard. I wonder what I lived in America for many years. They also got the weather wrong. I didn't have that excuse. So I know in England they probably also have I don't know. Right. Okay.
With the advent of a little bit more, and more information, advanced information,
Right.
friends, income,
Right.
pressure.
Right.
There's more chance of getting it used to.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right.
At the end of the day, the average is in control. We can see a 100-mile-an-hour wind coming to our coastline, wherever you're in the world.
Yeah.
The ocean sides, altitude or whatever it is, yes, the wind drops from 100 to 50. It comes, it doesn't do anywhere near the damage.
Right.
Vice versa. It could be the other way around.
Right.
It's coming at 50. And the average, say, oh, no, don't worry. And the average said, no, I'm going to make it 100. How many times you see this in the
Right. Yeah.
Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 You have hurricanes that come from the southern part of the United States. So Elena,
Everybody can live.
Yeah.
No,
it's lovely.
exactly. On a cycle, a yearly cycle, you're going to get so many hurricanes. How can you live there?
The weather's nice. That's
Sorry?
the other 98% of the time the weather's very nice.
Oh, I see.
That's fine. It's fine. They may ask, how can people live, wherever? They say, how can people live in Israel? It's this and that. How can you live in, I don't know, how can you live in Norway? It's, you get 30 minutes of light a month,
Yeah. Same thing.
You're definitely insane.
Yeah.
With my medical qualifications, I certify you insane. Okay.
the blood test.
So they don't.
Okay, so
Booked a
let,
blood test on Monday. Wednesday morning I had it. My sister booked a blood test. 8 weeks for a blood test.
Well, in England.
Terrible.
yeah. Hi, Baruch Hashem, we're here.
Yes.
Yeah, the trick is to see the good when even it's not good. That's the trick. You know, it's when things go well here, you know, Hashem sends, you know, when things go well, it's easy to see the good. Sometimes.
I'm not that hard. I've got blood in me.
Baruch Hashem. It's not so easy when you to take some people have very difficult veins. Okay, so now we move on to the next case in the Mishnah. Nigzal, a person. This is talking about a case where fourth wide line, unless you are 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, third wide line if you have the older version of the Gemara. Fourth wide line if you have the Oz V'Hadar / Art Scroll / whatever other new versions there are. Nigzal, Ketzad, the person goes into, he's owed a collateral, and the lender goes into the borrower's house and just seemingly takes the collateral to himself. How does the case work out? Nigzal Ketzad. Hayumi also. Their witness is Shenichnas Lebeisel Lamashkana. He goes into his house to take the collateral forcibly against his will. So the Gemara is going to ask, Dilma lo Mashkano. Maybe he claimed, he threatened, maybe he went in and didn't actually take anything. How do we know he took something that a lender can now claim he took something, take a shua, and then take it back, or its value? How could he make such a claim? Milo Amar Rav Nachman, didn't Rav Nachman say, I mind the nukit nargab yodeh. Person is holding on to an axe in his hand. Amar, I'm going to go chop down that palm tree over there. The ashkach the katil v'shadeh. And they find a palm tree laying on the ground, no longer with us, surrounded by police tape. Not that, but it's done. He said he's going to do it. He had the motive, opportunity, or the circumstantial evidence, but he had the axe in his hand. And he said he's going to do it, and we come back, and there it is. We had a similar case with Shimon ben Shetach. Remember, guy went into ran after a guy going into a churva. His hand, it's a knife in his hand, chasing after a guy. Or Shimon comes back. Guy's laying on the floor dead. Calls him a Russia. What could I do? I didn't have two witnesses. I didn't see you do it. So we'll just keep that in mind. I didn't see that here, but it brought it to mind. He said guy is holding an axe in his hand. Says he's going to cut down the tree. We come back and he says he's going to do it. And come back later, we see the somebody clearly chopped down this palm tree. So lo amrinan we don't say that he cut it down. We don't have proof that he cut it down. Alma, what do we see? Ovid inshi degazim lo ovid. A person could, exaggerate, make claims, say everything he wants, but we don't assume that he did something necessarily. Achanami. So to here, when it comes to taking the collateral from the person's house, he can say, I'm going to go and collect that collateral. He didn't even go in. Achanami degazim lo ovid. Maybe he's just exaggerating, didn't do it. How do we know? How are we, based on just his claim and seeing partial, some circumstantial information, how can we conclude from there that and then collect for the guy based on that? So the Meiri says that maybe the cases aren't exactly the same, because by the field, he goes into a field to chop down the tree. We just saw him holding an axe. Never says we saw him go into the field and actually go to the place that needs to be done. Here we saw him going to the house itself. Maybe it's like a step closer, says the Meiri. Well, the Meiri gives some terutzim. He says maybe we did see him going to the field. Doesn't say he didn't see him go to the field. He just says he's seeing him go with an axe, and he says he's going to cut it down. Maybe he did. Maybe the tree's right here. Right. Yeah.
Did you witness?
What did you witness? Right.
Part of the event,
Right.
assume
The rest. Right.
the other part. It
Right.
should be a natural consequence. We all know.
Right.
So people threaten, or there's many a slip of the cup and the.
As I'm drinking. Yeah.
I said it, yes.
There's not much. What's the expression? What,
There's many a slip of the cup and the.
Oh, you split between cover and the way. Yeah. I like that. Very
It
good.
can also be many a still between cup. But it depends what part of Britain you come from.
Yes. Very good. Now, we'll carry on.
This is scenarios that we're.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that's exactly the point, parents, is that he says they didn't see it. They're making a jump in assumption, but based on that jump in assumption, circumstantial evidence. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
After it's true. Yeah.
Right. So, but we're missing, didn't see. So the Gemara, why are we making him pay? They didn't see him actually do it. So the Gemara says, Ema Mishkana, Mishkana. Say that not only they saw him go in, they saw him take something. So now we moved it from one extreme, one side to the other side. Before we said they just saw him go in and they didn't see him take anything. How did he make him pay? And now we're saying they saw him go in, they saw him take it. If that's the case, say my Mishkana. As Rashi says, let's do the third to last Rashi. I want to do some Rashis. The Gozim, that the guy exaggerates. Amar Lasos Davar Guzma. You should go in Veinosa. He's a lot of hot air. He didn't actually say anything. But let's see what it says here. The Lechse my Mishkana. Osam Sheidu Shemishkana. Those who Sheidu Shemishkana Yeidu Ma Mishkana. Or Ma Shvua Yesh. Or Ma Shvua Yesh. We did it like that. They saw him go in. They also saw him take it. So why do we say he takes a shvua and then takes? There's no need for a shvua. He just takes it because he has witnesses that clearly saw him take his whatever, his table, his chair, his goblet, whatever. So we have to clarify this again. So Amar Rabba, second to last line, Amar Rabba bar Chana, Rabba the son bar Chana, grandson of Chana, bar Chana. Amar Rav Yochanan, it says in the name of Rav Yochanan, what's the case? Betano kelim anitalan tas kanafa. When he claiming that the case is when he saw the guy go in and take, but it was under his garment. Hook. Balabayas Rashi says, no toain shenoto kelim ketanim. He took small items. Sh'adam yochol lahastir tachas kanfei begada. Can hide under his. Now you have a nice winter coat, lots of pockets. Yeah. So that's high. Velo hikiru b'hamedim. The witnesses saw him go in, saw him take something, didn't know what he took. He took. So they have pretty strong evidence, but not enough. So that's the circumstance where he would swear and take. That's close enough to make him swear and take. Okay. Let's do the last line. Take us to the next page. This is where we have all the caveats. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Yehuda. This is a new, similar, but a slightly different case. We're not talking about a case where somebody is owed a collateral. We're not talking about a borrower and a lender. The lender goes into someone's house to get something. We're talking about someone just walks into someone's house, collects something. We'll see Tosos tomorrow. Let's just start it right now. Anyway, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rahu shehit min kelim tachas knafa. See someone hiding vessels, something under his garment. V'yatza goes out of someone's house. V'omer, and the guy, they ask him, what are you doing with that? V'omer lekuchenhem biyadi. I bought it. What do you mean? As Rashi says, Ubalabayas omer yishaltim lo. I lent it to him. I didn't let him keep it. So Eno Neman. He's not believed to say he bought it. He has to give it back. That's the first thing. Now I'm going to start here because we'll go back to this case again. It's going to Lo Omer Zeh. A whole bunch of caveats. One exactly this case applies, one doesn't apply. So we're on for tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. Sunday won't be here. And we'll have to continue thinking about our Siyam, Bezrat Hashem. How, when, where. We have the motive. Just need the opportunity. Okay.
But yesterday, we had a nice surprise.